Welcome to Power Player Lifestyle Magazine. We have a series called Power Player Talks. So it's all about speaking with powerful people who are making a positive impact all across the United States, the world, and here in Los Angeles. And let's also hashtag Southern California. So my name is Lela Christine. I am your host along with our amazing co-host, Dr. Moshe Lewis. So how you doing today?
Doing great. And you look great. And
right.
I love the fuchsia. You're popping it.
All right, popping with the fuchsia.
And our guest has got fuchsia, so we got it all coordinated there.
We are so excited today, and I bring to you two amazing people. They are a husband and wife team, and how can I say this? Project Impact. When you hear that word, Project Impact, what do you feel?
Sure. Well, I mean, just power. And I love that you said, let's have impact today. And so this is just amazing. It's just such a positive word.
Great.
So we have Dr. Matthew and Mary Harris. They are the founders of Project Impact. So we want to welcome them to Power Player Talks. How you doing?
Great.
Good to be here.
Well,
Thank
you look
you
good.
so much. Well,
You
we
look good.
got the memo.
Sure. Yes.
Got the memo.
Invisible
Gotta look good.
memo.
Yeah, so we're coordinated.
Exactly.
So my first question for both Dr. Matthew Harris and Mary Harris is, how did you get started with Project Impact? What was it that said, oh my God, I have to start a philanthropic organization that's focused on helping you? So talk to us. Tell us the history. How did you get started?
We got started as a result of my pastoring in Linwood, which is right outside of Watts and right outside of Compton. And I'm what you might call classically trained in ministry. So I studied Bultmann, Bonhoeffer, Tillich. I could tell you whether the elements of the Eucharist were consubstantiated or transubstantiated at the time of blessing. But when I got to Los Angeles, I had a rude awakening that very few people were interested in my studies or my advanced studies in education. What they wanted to know was, and we asked some very dangerous questions, and that is, how can we help? And so instead of preaching many of the things that I learned in seminary, we ended up asking the community, how can we help? And the rude awakening was, instead of folks asking about, the high theological terms that we learned in seminary, they said, how can God get my child off of drugs? Can God reduce the violence in my neighborhood? And we heard these things in very raw terms that the church oftentimes is not used to hearing, these kinds of things. And it was raw, and it was very real, and it was very painful to hear some of these things. And we decided there were two experiences after not only hearing the kind of needs and hurts that were going on in our community, but two experiences that Mary and I had that radically changed our life, that got us involved. One was Mary and I were caught in the crossfire of a drive-by shooting.
Wow.
And nothing will change your life more because you don't know whether the bullet coming out, the next bullet coming out of the barrel of that gun has your name on it.
Right.
Wow. And so Mary, she's screaming, he's got a gun. And I'm thinking, thank you very much. I appreciate you telling me that he's got a gun, and he's squeezing off rounds. And it appeared to be maybe two rival gang members. One person was in the car in front of us, another one in opposing traffic, and they got out and just started shooting at each other. Wow. Well, it appeared as if that nobody was harmed, but it was traumatizing,
to say the least.
No, really.
For me to experience that. And what I also discovered is that many of our children and people that are living in our communities are suffering from trauma.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
They are.
And it affects,
we are.
It affects the way that you think, it affects the way that you function, and it is one of the highest needs in our counseling center of youth and families suffering from trauma. And we experienced just a piece of it when we were caught in the crossfire of a drive-by shooting. The second piece was preaching funerals of kids that weren't as fortunate as Mary and I to walk away from that drive-by shooting. And in every single funeral that I would minister at, I would end with this thought: it didn't have to end this way.
Right.
And the kids that we saw were cut down early in life. These were kids that were like my son.
Right.
You know,
Or any of
our nephews, you know, our kids, the people that are in our neighborhoods. And it was the flesh and blood that was cut down, dreams gone, ideas, and parents, you know, when you walk a child through, when you walk a family through the whole experience of grief, they're holding on to pictures, they're holding on to diplomas.
That's true.
They're holding on to memorabilia that reminded them of the dreams that they were trying to plant into their child, and all that's gone. And I would leave those funerals, and Mary and I left this drive-by shooting thinking, I cannot go back to business as usual. And we have to do whatever it is within our power to be able to help our community so that violence doesn't become that kind of option. And that's the genesis of Project Impact.
Sure. And tell us a little bit about sort of your vision as well and sort of how you all shaped it. Because to take something from an idea to actually making a difference is a huge step.
I'm a PK, I'm a preacher's kid.
Exactly.
So I grew up in a family where our home was always an open door for helping others. And I think that became a passion of my own. So even when I went away to school, actually we were college sweethearts. We met at Oral Roberts University in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But my master's work began in guidance and counseling because I still wanted to help. Ended up getting an MBA degree because of the work that we do, because I wanted to be able to support and help the work to grow and to develop. And then my PhD in org management. So we're using our gifts and talents to help and reach out to others because we see a great need. So what he was saying, when we were at the church, we never had a day hardly go by where we didn't have people in crisis knocking on the door of the church when he was pastoring. And we wanted to be able to address those needs. So we just started asking the community again, how can we help? How can we assist? What can we do? We didn't want to just be a church with four walls and just expecting people to show up. But how do we reach outside of those walls and make a difference? So out of that ministry, Project Impact was birthed because the superintendent of schools was a member of our church. She started having us work with some of the people, some of the youth. Parents started seeing changes in their kids, and it kept snowballing. We first started out just doing peer counseling. Then with the peer counseling, we needed to do parenting because parents had to understand the change that was taking place with their children. And then after that, everybody needed a job. So we started job training and placement, personal development workshops. Then it outgrew the space where we were, so we had to make a decision. Do we go full-time with this work, or do we just stay within the confines of those walls and just do a little bit of work? So we chose to go outside, and 36 years later, here we are still.
36 years. That's a long time to
and
be giving to the
the 5 components that we offer is school dropout prevention, counseling, parent education, job training and placement, and mentoring. Because after you develop, a treatment plan or a goal plan, after you've developed, what you've identified what the problem is, what the solution is, the path that gets them there, you can't just tuck those things up under their arm, push them back into a hostile environment and say, good luck, I hope you make it. Because somewhere along the line, that child or that family, that mother, that father, needs to know how to connect the dots when they come in contact with in crisis. And so how do you deal with the triggers? How do you deal with the anxieties and the fear that come with walking a child through their success and development when the environment works against that? So the mission statement of Project Impact is strengthening youth, children, and families through programs of self and community empowerment. And so I appreciate, particularly now, we've got a taste of soul that's going on across the street. We're talking about issues of empowerment within the community. But it's a two-winged bird. It's one can flap, but then the bird doesn't fly. It takes both self and it takes community working together. So when you fix a child, sometimes you have to go back in and look at ways that you can fix the school, that you can fix the streets, that you can fix law enforcement. And so you have to have voice not only in the development of that child, but you also have to find voice in the development of your community.
Okay. So my question is, Do you host special events, like once a quarter, where you bring the families and your team together and you celebrate whatever the celebration is? Because I know with a lot of charitable foundations, 501c3s, you have to be able to get into the community and host things for the community. So what are some of those particular programs that you host?
Well, we don't do a lot of the hosting of the large events, only because we find that the issues that our children are dealing with are so personal that we're required to do a deeper dive into their lives. So you're dealing with fears, you're dealing with anxieties, you're dealing with depression. You're dealing with, in some instances, borderline medical necessity of some of the things that these children are dealing with because of their prolonged exposure to violence and to trauma. And so the larger events, we will work with our faith community to do some of the larger events in terms of getting the word out or even sharing things like this, like we're doing with you. But then the real work or the deeper dive is when youth and families are referred to us by law enforcement agencies, by the schools, by the Department of Children and Family Services, by the Department of Mental Health. And these are folks that have they have been referred or they have called into the hotline. They've sent a caseworker out into the field, and they saw that the case has been substantiated. So once it's substantiated, we have a contract then with the Department of Children and Family Services and the Department of Mental Health to be able to then bring that family in and provide an assessment. And so then once we are able to repair or once we're able to get that child or family into a treatment plan, then we do some celebrations. We'll have, particularly with our faith communities, and we have churches that work with us to provide what we call a continuum of care, because most social service agencies are not in a position to provide a continuum of care. They'll provide maybe 3 to 4 or 5 months worth of care, but then they push them back out into the community. And so what happens is that oftentimes the children and families that are coming into these programs feel abandoned. So the faith community is one of the most unique communities that can provide a continuum of care. So we work with them to be able to provide that, and that has been one of the key reasons why the program has been successful is because we have these children that are now integrated into a community, and then the church takes time to celebrate that success.
That's what's key at the end of the day.
And we also have celebrations at our organization, and we invite the families that are of the children or just the families, even the older adults will invite their families to come celebrate with us. And we do also have a component which is our alumni. So we never make a person feel like, okay, you're done and it's over. So they're part of our alumni system, so they can always be involved in any activities or whatever we do at Project M.
Now, you have these alumni. Do some of them want to work with you?
They do.
Okay,
some of them we send them out for training,
cool.
and they're actually on our staff after completing the program.
That's success. That's what I love.
We just received a contract from the Department of Mental Health, so we're certified as a Medi-Cal certified provider, mental health provider. So we just landed that about 3 weeks ago as a result of a 7-year journey.
Right, which it is with Medi-Cal.
So it's not just you turn the switch on, you've got to be able to. So a couple of our job openings, in fact, if there are those that we're hiring at Project Impact, 3 of our job openings are peer recovery specialists. What that basically means is that if there are those that have come through come through our domestic violence class, if there are those that have come through trauma recovery, as a result of domestic violence, neglect or abuse, and they've successfully are into their treatment plan. We then assign them a mentor, but the Department of Mental Health refers to them as peer recovery specialists.
That's a good word.
That's right. They can relate to it. They've actually been there themselves.
And it's so we're moving our mentor program, and we're doing more of a deeper dive, making sure that our mentors are certified by that particular program, and then that program works under the leadership of a licensed therapist, of an MFT or LCSW.
Picking a general case scenario, sort of walk us through what someone might see, how somebody might present, and what type of team members they may encounter.
Well, I think we kind of talked about that a little bit. We get our referrals directly a lot of times. I'll do a Department of Children and Family Services case. When that case is referred to us, we have a director of our program that actually will then assign that case to one of our workers. Okay. An assessment is actually done on the family. Then not only do we meet with that person ourselves, but we are in partnership with DCFS. So their staff, we do their multidisciplinary case planning session, so that we are looking at all aspects of what's going on with that family and what the needs are. Then from that point, when it's decided the kind of treatment plan needed, then that's when we take action, whether they need to stay in just counseling, if they need parent education, if they need mental health sessions, whatever's needed, we make sure that we provide that. And then that's for a term of 6 months to a year.
Right. And those treatment plans are done with the family. So it's not like the family comes in and something is assigned to them, where they feel as an outsider
they take
to
ownership.
the process.
They take ownership of the process.
And then they sit in the room, and then you're sitting in the room with therapists, but they don't feel like sociological case studies. And what you also do is that the setting is so important, so we try to make it as much of a home setting or a setting where they don't feel intimidated, and they feel free enough to be able to explain at least their side of the story, and then we understand that, then we agree upon a plan that moves them to wholeness.
And our in-home outreach counselors, they're meeting with them weekly. Then we have teaching and demonstration workers that are also meeting with them weekly.
Sure.
Yeah.
See, that's key.
What kind of challenges do you feel exist sort of in the community as relates to just gang violence itself? Because it seems to be such a big challenge to really tackle for any program.
Yeah. I think that the challenge that presents itself as an opportunity is working with our faith community, because what is critical to the success of these families is to provide them with a continuum of care. That we are not only interested in just, with many social service agencies, and it's unfortunate, that you'll have agencies that will parachute into the community because there's a large fee that can be taken for servicing these kids, but then they leave these children abandoned without providing them. How then do you manage? And how then do we provide a continuum of care? So the faith community, particularly within the African American community, has been the church has been probably one of the most significant institutions that's navigated our community through change. And so I would say that our greatest challenge, which presents itself as an opportunity, is to be able to help the church understand that to go beyond the stigma of mental health. People think that, well, I don't want mental health care because if that's an admission that I'm crazy.
Right. Sure.
Right.
And crazy doesn't have any definition. It doesn't have any boundaries around it.
We got a crazy country, so hashtag, crazy.
Yeah, so you just say they're crazy. And so then we stop there, but then we don't understand that let's then set that idea aside.
Right.
Do you have problems? Do you have issues with depression, anxiety? Do you have fears that you don't know how to manage? Are there issues with are you dealing with violence and neglect and abuse and do you ever get feelings of frustration? Well, that's mental health.
Skills, yeah.
I think everybody has that from time to time.
That's
all of us, when you're dealing with the traffic, you're standing in line. You're dealing with people that may not,
road rage, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you've reached a tipping point, all of a sudden, and it may not be just that incident, but it could be a culmination of incidents that led up, to an explosive moment, or triggers, so, and all of us have triggers, we could be sitting down listening, then all of a sudden somebody talks and shares something with you politically, and all of a sudden it just sets a trigger off.
It does.
Set off. It does. Yes, right. It can light you up.
Politics topics will line anybody up.
You know,
Some topics to stay away from.
In fact, we say stay away from
Politics and religion. Yes, just stay away
even
from
though we're
those
in the
two.
church.
Yeah.
But the one thing that we're learning how to do is to talk about mental health in a way that it doesn't feed into these fears of what mental health is all about. All of us, could stand to use a person that we could confide in.
Yes.
A good counselor.
Right.
That doesn't just support bad ideas.
Right.
That we can, because sometimes we have friends that say, "Well, honey, child, if I was you, I'd slap them upside the head too."
Sure, right.
You can't just hit them now.
Right.
So you need somebody, that a peer recovery specialist is somebody that knows how to walk you through, listen, and point you in a direction that provides healing and hope. And so one of our mantras that we're proud to be able to say is that we not only hope is not only within sight,
It's within reach,
but it's within reach.
And I like that. And here's another, just a question. During the pandemic, everything was shut down.
Yeah.
California has really reopened in the past 8-9 months. It hasn't.
Right.
I mean, no, literally. How did your organization? How did you operate? Was it escalated? Was there more?
Well, because of the work that we
incidences,
do, we could not
situations?
shut down.
Okay.
Right.
We're an
Because
essential
considered
service.
we're an
Right.
essential service because of the referrals
Yes.
that we get from the Department of Children and Family Services, and those
Don't
never
stop.
They
Right.
never stop.
Right.
So we had to continue to work, but we had to change our way, whether we did hybrid visits or things like that because of COVID. But we also made sure that our staff was safe by making sure that they had all the proper EPP equipment.
Right.
And then we also had it for our clients.
Right.
And then we would make sure that they still did visuals to see and make sure everything was okay with them at home. But then they did everything remotely.
Right.
Okay.
So they would only spend a
comply.
limited time so that they weren't having extended exposure and things like that. So we had our workarounds to make it work because we had to stay in touch with these families.
Yeah.
But did you see like there's more cases, there's
Absolutely.
more violence, there's
Yes.
more?
Yes.
Wow.
I mean, because the pandemic, it was.
Yeah, it forced
it's still,
people.
We still have a pandemic. It's just.
Well, you had families that had children that were now out of school staying at home, and they weren't used to that.
Sure.
Okay.
And that
They didn't
created
even
its
know
own
how to
new
handle it.
issues.
It was like, oh my
Right.
God, my kid's here 24/7, and I don't know what to do now.
Right.
And they were having trouble also with the remote learning because
Exactly.
schools were trying to do that, and these parents couldn't help their kids. So we had to try to fill those gaps even for a lot of our families.
And a lot of times they didn't have the tools to be able to work through remote learning. So one of the things that we did was, and I'm really proud, our board of directors stepped up to provide anyone that had a need with an iPad.
Right.
And so
Technology,
yes,
key,
so that
everybody.
if there, and this helped in many ways. One, it helped us to be able to speak directly to the youth or family that was in need. So our counselors would have a phone, and so they could see visually, and then they would be able to, they would have to show the home or show the environment, make sure that things were as if we were actually there to make sure that the home environment was safe. The other thing is that it did provide a learning environment so that they were able to connect with their school or with their counselor, and so that was helpful. But again, part of the challenge was the fact that a lot of these families didn't have the coping mechanisms to be able to stay home and to put up with the frustrations
With the kids
and
the family.
and they were required to
we
stay
were on
home.
lockdown.
They didn't know how to
All
deal with being locked down and locked in. So that was a real challenge, and we
That
found
was a challenge for all of us.
Yeah, and
Just
our
everyone.
caseload actually increased as a result of that.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
Well, it looks like we have to just close out, and we're excited. I mean, and give us your website.
Yeah,
I
tell
want
us how to
people to
find
be
you.
able to just log in and
Yes,
come
it's
to Project Impact if you need
www.projectimpactusa.org.
So we'd like to thank Dr. Matthew Harris and Mary Harris. We think they're amazing. What they're doing is amazing. And if you want to get involved, you can donate. Is there, let's say if people want to donate to your cause?
It's on our website. There's
Okay.
there's a
good.
big donate button
Right.
that you can click.
Donate button.
The needs are always there.
So please feel free, and the not only that, but the donate button includes those that would like to volunteer.
Okay.
In other ways.
Yeah,
And then so that they can donate with their time, talent, and resources.
this is good.
I love that. Yeah. No, it's so important. It has to be an entire community. Like you said, it takes a village.
It's all about giving
Yes.
everybody. It's all about giving Project Impact. And thank you so much.